When most people think about wealth, the first image that comes to mind is money, a lot of money. Banknotes, full bank accounts, growing investments, the freedom to buy whatever you want and live without financial strain. But the great truth is that money, by itself, is not the first step toward becoming wealthy. Before it, there is something even more important. Something that everyone receives in similar amounts, but that few know how to use wisely. Attention. Attention is like a light. Wherever you point that light, that is where your life begins to grow. If you place your attention on things that make you advance, learn, improve, and build, your life gradually follows that direction. But if you hand over your attention every day to distractions, small vices, habits that seem harmless, and activities that leave no real value in the end, then your life will follow that path too. Lots of movement, lots of exhaustion, but little real result. That is why attention is worth more than money, because before earning more, a person needs to learn to protect their focus. Before building wealth in their pocket, they need to build discipline within their mind. Money is usually a consequence of what a person repeatedly does, and what they repeatedly do depends on where their attention is every day. Think of someone who works hard, wakes up early, runs around all day, but ends the week without energy, without clarity, and without having advanced in anything truly important for their own future. Now think of another person who may not have started with much, but learned to use their hours better, to filter out distractions, to say no to what steals time, and to say yes to what plants results. As the months pass, the difference between them begins to show. And over the years, that difference can become enormous. Wealth does not begin when more money comes in. It begins when a person stops wasting their life in pieces. An hour lost here, 20 minutes thrown away there, a bad habit repeated every day, a distraction that seems small but that slowly drains mental energy, motivation, and consistency. At first, this barely draws attention, but over time, it becomes an invisible and very costly bill, because it does not just take minutes. It takes focus, it takes discipline, it takes the capacity to think long-term, and that is precisely where many people get lost. Not because they are incapable, not because they do not work, not because they do not want to succeed, but because they live surrounded by habits that steal what is most precious to them. Habits that drain time that could be used to learn something new, that consume energy that could be invested in a personal project, that weaken the discipline that would be needed to start investing, organize their financial life, or build a new source of income. The truth is simple but powerful. Those who do not control their own attention end up handing their future over to distractions. And distractions almost always offer immediate pleasure, but charge a high price later. They give comfort in the moment, but leave emptiness in the result. Meanwhile, true wealth is built differently. It is born in silent choices, in well-used hours, in protected focus, in the ability to trade quick satisfaction for real progress. That is why this video is not only about money. It is about learning to identify everything that is stealing your chances to grow. It is about realizing that becoming wealthy does not depend only on earning more, but also on stopping the loss of what never comes back. Your time, your mental energy, and your ability to concentrate on what truly matters. Because, in the end, the person who learns to take care of their own attention begins to build a stronger, more conscious, and far more prepared life for prosperity. Television has always seemed like a simple thing. After a tiring day, sitting on the couch, turning on the screen and letting the hours pass seems almost deserved. And in a way, that is exactly how it presents itself, as rest, as leisure, as a moment to switch off the mind. The problem is that for many people, this stops being a short break and becomes a daily habit that consumes an enormous part of life without the person even noticing. 1 hour of television seems like little. 2 hours seem normal. But when this happens every day, the bill changes completely. Little by little, that time begins to turn into weeks, months, and even entire years handed over to passive consumption. And the most dangerous part is that while a person sits in front of the screen, they almost never feel like they are losing anything. After all, they are entertained, they are occupied, they are watching something. But being occupied is not the same as moving forward. That is the central point. Television trains the mind to only receive, not to build. It places the person in the role of a spectator of life. Instead of using that time to learn a new skill, read something that expands their vision, plan an extra source of income, study about investments, or even take a small step in a personal project, the person spends hours following stories, repeated news, empty programs, or content that ends without leaving any real value for their future. This is not about saying that all entertainment is wrong. The problem lies in excess, and most importantly, in automatic habit. In that gesture of turning on the television without thinking, just because it has always been that way, just because the silence is uncomfortable, just because the person wants to escape the pressure of the day. What they often do not realize is that this escape, repeated for a long time, also takes them away from their own goals. Wealth is almost never built in great explosions. It is born in small, repeated choices. Instead of 2 hours in front of a screen, imagine a person using that same time to read 10 pages a day about money, business, or behavior. It seems like little at first, but as the months go by, that person will have learned more, thought better, and made smarter decisions. Now imagine someone using that time to learn how to sell something, provide a service, edit videos, improve their communication, study a market, or better organize their own budget. Gradually, what seemed like just an ordinary hour begins to become a bridge to a different life. Television, when it takes up too much space, does not just steal minutes, it steals initiative. Because the more a person gets used to consuming what others create, the less strength they feel to create their own change. They watch the success of others, follow the lives of others, hear about the problems of the entire world, but do not invest enough energy to transform their own reality. They stay informed about everything, except about how to move from where they are. And there is still one important detail. The screen tires the mind without building clarity. The person finishes watching feeling like they rested, but often remains exactly the same on the inside. The project is still paused, the financial life is still disorganized, the goal is still distant, the dream is still just a dream. And this generates a dangerous illusion. The feeling that the day was filled, when in reality what mattered was postponed once again. Whoever wants to build wealth needs to learn to look at their own time more seriously. They need to understand that every hour carries weight. Every block of the day can be a seed or a waste. And when television occupies too much space, it becomes a silent thief of the future. Not because it makes noise, not because it forces anyone, but precisely because it seems harmless. That is how many years are lost. Not in great mistakes, but in small habits repeated without awareness. Trading part of that time for reading, learning, planning, or personal development does not seem exciting at first. Many times, it actually seems less fun. But it is exactly this kind of trade that separates those who merely pass time from those who begin to build a stronger, smarter, and more prosperous life. Because in the end, television may entertain for a few hours, but it will rarely build the future you say you want. Social media entered people's lives with the promise of connection, information, and opportunity. And in fact, they can even offer all of that to some extent. The problem is that in practice, for most people, they have turned into one of the greatest distraction machines ever created. Not because they are entirely useless, but because they were made to hold attention for as long as possible. And when attention is held captive, focus disappears. When focus disappears, discipline weakens. And when discipline weakens, the building of wealth begins to drift further and further away. The most dangerous thing about social media is that it does not seem like a waste of time at first. After all, the person thinks they are just looking for a few minutes. They open their phone to check a message, look at some news, watch a quick video, follow a story. But before they realize it, far more time has passed than they imagined. One piece of content leads to another. One video calls the next, one photo pulls another, a discussion appears, a comment holds the mind, and that time that could have been used for something productive slips away in silence. And it is not only time that is lost. Social media also breaks concentration. It trains the mind to jump from stimulus to stimulus, from subject to subject, from emotion to emotion. The person begins to get used to short content, quick replies, constant novelty. And over time, anything that requires depth starts to feel heavy. Reading a book becomes difficult. Studying something important feels tiring. Working on a project for a long time without interruption becomes almost unbearable. The mind grows restless, impatient, dependent on quick stimuli. And a mind like that finds it very hard to build something solid over the long term. There is also another hidden poison in this environment: comparison. On social media, a person almost always sees the edited version of others' lives. They see achievements, trips, purchases, bodies, results, cars, houses, appearances of success, and carefully chosen moments. But they do not see the debt, the behind the scenes, the mistakes, the insecurities, the silent failures, and the complete reality behind all of it. Even so, the brain compares. And this constant comparison creates anxiety, frustration, and the feeling that everyone is moving forward except them. This feeling is destructive because it makes the person spend emotional energy watching the lives of others. Instead of investing that strength in building their own story, they begin to want to appear successful rather than truly grow. They want to show an image of progress before even having built real foundations. And this is one of the most dangerous paths for those who want to prosper financially. Living, trying to keep up with other people's window displays while abandoning their own process. Wealth demands presence. It demands mental clarity. It demands the ability to sustain attention on important tasks, even when they are not exciting. But social media pushes the mind toward the opposite of that. It encourages dispersion. It rewards superficiality. It feeds the urgency of now, and wealth almost always grows from the opposite. From patience, repetition, continuous effort, and decisions that do not seem brilliant in the moment, but that generate results over time. Imagine two people with the same 24 hours each day. One spends a large part of their time consuming the routines of others, reacting to posts, engaging in arguments, watching short videos, and scrolling endlessly. The other decides to limit that use, protects their mind, chooses more carefully what they consume, and uses the remaining time to learn something marketable, take care of their finances, plan goals, and develop real skills. At first, the difference between them might seem small, but after months or years, the results speak for themselves. Social media also has another silent effect. It gives the false impression of participation. The person comments, likes, shares, discusses, gives opinions, follows trends, and feels connected to the world. But at the end of the day, what was truly built? What grew? What improved? What created concrete value for their life? Often, almost nothing. There was movement, but no advancement. There was stimulation, but no construction. That is why limiting the use of social media is not just a productivity decision. It is a decision of mental protection. It is a way of reclaiming control over one's own attention. It is telling yourself that your energy will not be handed over for free to platforms that profit from your distraction. It is choosing to stop watching the lives of others as entertainment and beginning, seriously, to build your own. Whoever wants to become wealthy must understand that focus is invisible patrimony. And everything that repeatedly breaks that focus, no matter how common it may seem, ends up charging a high price in the future. In the end, the big question is simple. Are you using social media as a tool, or are you being used by it? Video games were created to give players a constant feeling of advancement. With each level defeated, each challenge overcome, each new stage reached, the mind receives a small reward. It feels as though something important is happening. It feels as though the person is evolving, conquering, becoming better. And that is precisely where the danger lies. Because inside the game, progress is fast, visible, and exciting. But outside of it, real life remains in the same place, waiting for attention, effort, and true action. This is one of the reasons why video games can become a major distraction for those who want to build wealth. They offer an artificial version of achievement. In the game, you receive prizes, level up, unlock resources, gain status, defeat enemies, and feel like you are advancing. But that advancement, in most cases, ends when the screen goes dark. It does not increase your income. It does not improve your finances. It does not build assets. It does not create an asset. It does not strengthen a skill that will concretely transform your future. The problem is not just about playing, but about trading valuable time in real life for a sense of progress that bears no lasting fruit. And this happens very silently. The person thinks they are just relaxing a little, just having fun, just passing the time. But when this habit grows too large, it begins to occupy space that should be used for something that could genuinely change their reality. Imagine someone who spends 2, 3, or 4 hours a day trying to conquer challenges in a virtual world. That person is dedicated, learns strategies, persists, repeats, makes mistakes, improves, and keeps trying until they get the result. Now imagine if that same energy were placed into something real, into learning a skill that could be sold, into studying finances, into starting a side project, into developing a small extra source of income, into understanding how to invest better, into improving communication, discipline, or the capacity to solve problems. Little by little, that dedication would begin to build something solid. This is the point that many people avoid seeing. Whoever spends hours mastering a game has already proven they have focus, patience, and the ability to learn. What is often missing is not talent, but direction. The energy exists, the persistence exists, the will to win exists. It is just that all of it is being placed somewhere that does not return real growth to their financial life. And there is another important detail. Video games tend to be far more attractive than building in the real world because they deliver immediate reward. In real life, effort does not always produce results on the same day. Sometimes you study today and only notice the difference months later. Sometimes you start a small project and at first, almost nobody sees its value. Sometimes you organize your finances, cut expenses, learn something new, improve a little each week, and still the great return takes a long time to appear. This requires maturity. It requires long-term vision. It requires emotional resilience. A game, on the other hand, delivers quick excitement. It makes the person feel rewarded all the time, and because of this, the mind can begin to prefer this easy, immediate kind of progress, rejecting everything that requires true patience. The result of this is dangerous. The person becomes increasingly trained to seek short reward and increasingly less prepared to build wealth consistently. This does not mean that every form of leisure is wrong. The problem begins when entertainment starts dominating the time that should be used for growth. When the person knows they need to organize their life, learn something useful, increase their income, or take better care of their future, but keep spending much of their best time on battles that disappear the moment the console is turned off. Real life works differently. In it, the levels are slower but also more valuable. Every skill learned can open doors. Every disciplined habit can improve your income. Every intelligent choice can strengthen your freedom. Every well-taken step can build something that continues to exist tomorrow, next month, and in the years ahead. While in the game you fight for virtual coins, in real life you can build assets. While in the game you try to climb rankings, in real life you can climb in competence, clarity, and results. While in the game you unlock stages, in real life you can unlock opportunities that transform your family, your security, and your peace. At its core, the great question is this: all this time, all this energy, and all this will to win, are they being used to conquer something that lasts or something that disappears? Whoever desires to prosper needs to make this reflection honestly. Because true wealth is not born from the feeling of progress. It is born from real progress. And that requires trading part of entertainment for building, part of impulse for strategy, and part of fantasy for actions that leave concrete marks on life. Gambling has always known how to sell a promise that quickly seduces the human mind, the idea of gaining a lot in a short time. It is a proposition that seems irresistible, especially for those who are tired of struggling, financially squeezed, or anxious for a quick change of life. After all, when someone sees their bills growing, their salary disappearing, and their dreams drifting further away, any path that seems too short begins to attract attention. And that is precisely where the danger lies. Gambling presents itself as opportunity, but in practice, it operates as an emotional and financial trap. It feeds the fantasy that wealth can emerge from chance, from a stroke of luck, from the right bet, from an unlikely moment that changes everything. But true wealth almost never grows that way. It does not usually come from impulse, nor from emotion, nor from haste. It is born from patience, clarity, the repetition of good choices, and the capacity to build over time. When a person enters the world of gambling, believing that there lies the answer to their financial problems, they begin to move away from the logic of the investor and toward the mindset of the gambler. And these two ways of thinking are completely different. The investor asks, does this make sense in the long term? Does this protect my money? Can this grow consistently? Is this based on strategy? The gambler thinks, what if it works? What if I win now? What if this is my chance? Notice the difference. One is building based on intelligent probability. The other is handing money over to uncertainty, guided by emotion. The great problem is that gambling stirs something very powerful within human beings: quick hope. It makes the person believe they are close to a turning point. And many times, even when they lose, they keep going, because they think the next attempt might make up for everything. Then comes another, and another. Little by little, what seemed like a small bet turns into an expensive habit, not only in the pocket but also in the mind. The person begins to live in terms of expectation, risk, adrenaline, and the illusion of recovery. And this destroys one of the most important foundations of wealth: discipline, because becoming wealthy requires accepting that great results tend to be slow. It requires planting before harvesting. It requires giving up immediate pleasures to strengthen the future. It requires understanding that money must be treated as a seed, not as a chip. Whoever gambles on chance begins to get used to the idea that growing depends more on luck than on strategy. And this belief weakens the capacity to build something solid. Imagine two people with the same amount left over at the end of the month. One decides to put that amount into bets, always believing they can multiply it quickly. The other decides to study, invest little by little, save regularly, and learn to choose better assets over time. At first, the first person might even seem more animated. They feel excitement, anticipation, the sensation of an immediate chance. But the second is doing something far more powerful, building a foundation, strengthening a structure that can grow in a real, safe, and continuous way. Gambling also steals something that goes beyond money. It steals serenity. Because whoever enters this cycle rarely finds peace. Either they are anxious to bet, or they are trying to recover losses, or they are dreaming of an unlikely win, or they are feeling frustrated for not getting what they imagined. The mind gradually becomes a hostage of oscillation, and an unstable mind makes poor decisions. A rushed mind moves away from strategic thinking. A mind that constantly chases quick gain almost never manages to respect the process that builds true wealth. It is important to understand that wealth is not built through impulse. Wealth is built through criteria, through prudence, through study, through repeated choices that seem small in the present but become powerful in the future. Whoever learns this begins to see money differently. They stop looking for dangerous shortcuts and start valuing firm paths. They stop seeking financial excitement and start seeking solidity. They stop dreaming of a stroke of luck and begin to create with their own hands a more secure life. The truth is that gambling sells speed but delivers instability. It sells hope but often produces loss. It sells the image of wealth but moves the person away from the principles that truly create wealth. Whoever wants to prosper needs to abandon the illusion of instant enrichment and embrace the intelligence of consistent growth. Because in the end, it is not the bet that transforms someone's future. It is conscious decisions, well-chosen assets, preserved discipline, and the patience that almost no one wants to have. But that is precisely what separates those who dream from those who build. Useless friendships almost never seem dangerous at first. In fact, they often present themselves as light, fun, and comfortable. They are those companions who always have time to talk, go out, spend, complain, waste hours on empty subjects, or mock anyone who tries to change their life. At first glance, it seems like ordinary companionship. It seems like just friendship. But over time, these relationships can become an invisible anchor, keeping the person exactly in the place they are trying to leave. This happens because the social circle influences far more than most people imagine. The environment in which you live shapes your way of thinking, your habits, your decisions, and even the size of the life you believe you deserve to build. If a person spends every day with people who only talk about spending, gossip, excuses, immediate pleasure, and conformity, little by little, they begin to find it normal to live that way too. And what becomes normal is rarely questioned. This is a profound point. No one grows alone, but neither does anyone grow surrounded by people who constantly pull their mind downward. Useless friendships are not only those that waste time. Often they are the ones that drain your energy, discredit your plans, ridicule your discipline, and treat ambition as though it were arrogance. When someone decides to save more, study more, work on a project, avoid waste, or start thinking long-term, this kind of friendship tends to respond with mockery. It makes jokes. It tries to discourage. It says the person is exaggerating, becoming boring, or trying to be better than everyone else. But deep down, this is almost never about you. It is about the discomfort that your change provokes in those who chose to remain the same. The truth is that many people do not only want companionship, they want validation. They want everyone around them to keep acting the same way so that no one has to face their own habits honestly. So when someone begins to cut excesses, take better care of their money, think about growth, or seek a more structured life, it bothers them. Because the discipline of one person exposes the disorder of another without a single word needing to be said. That is why the social circle carries enormous weight in the building of wealth. Not only because it influences spending, but because it influences worldview. If you surround yourself with people who keep saying that nothing ever works out, money is only for a few, investing is not worth it, Working harder is pointless, studying changes nothing, and life is just about enjoying the now. Then, without even realizing it, your mind begins to absorb that pattern, and a mind surrounded by negativity loses the strength to build. Beyond that, useless friendships tend to be practically costly. They are often the ones that push the person toward unnecessary outings, impulse purchases, comparisons, spending to impress others, expensive habits, and emotional decisions. With every purposeless invitation, every pressure to keep up with a lifestyle that does not match their goals, the person drifts further from what they truly wanted to build. And the worst part is that all of this usually happens gradually, in a way that is almost imperceptible. Imagine someone who wants to organize their financial life, invest more, study a new skill, and build an extra source of income. Now imagine that person surrounded by people who only want distraction, immediate consumption, and empty conversation. Every time they try to advance, the environment pulls them back. Every time they try to focus, the group offers dispersion. Every time they try to mature, someone appears to say they are taking life too seriously. In that scenario, staying firm requires far more effort. On the other hand, when a person draws closer to disciplined, clear-headed, responsible, and growth-oriented people, something changes within them. Not because those people are perfect, but because they help strengthen better standards. They talk about ideas, not just problems. They talk about solutions, not just complaints. They value building, not just appearance. And that kind of company elevates the mind. It makes the person think better, choose better, dream with more clarity, act with more consistency. It is important to understand that cutting useless friendships does not mean despising people or becoming cold. It means protecting your future. It means recognizing that not every company does you good, and that some relationships need to be limited so that your life can grow. Sometimes there is no need to argue, over-explain, or make any announcement. It is enough to reduce the presence, change direction, and choose more carefully where your energy will be invested. Because in the end, friendship should not be just presence. It should be healthy influence. It should be support for growth, not encouragement for self-sabotage. It should bring you closer to your best version, not keep you trapped in habits that impoverish your mind and your wallet. Whoever wishes to prosper needs to ask one sincere question. Do the people around me strengthen my discipline or feed my distractions? That answer can change a great deal, and if this message made sense to you, take advantage of this moment to act. Like this video and subscribe to the channel, because here you will find content that can open your mind, strengthen your discipline, and help you build a much more solid financial life. And above all, stay close, because your change can begin with one simple but powerful decision: choosing to learn something new today instead of continuing to live on autopilot.